Shaping Africa's educational thoughts. Swing the talents from abortion, amassing this and your motivation innovation. Upholding community and beauty and sunrise, transforming Africa's education. We espouse which virtues and last function. We research which joy.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you find yourself. A very welcome to you all to this AU-EU Post-Summit webinar organized by the Association of African Universities and Obril Global. The second one was organized by Obril Global and the European University Association under a theme, Enhancing Higher Education System through Regional and Interregional Approaches. This event was organized during the EU's African Development and Shares Experiences of African EU Higher Education Collaboration. So with both events reiterated to advancing higher education in Africa, and was again calling the bodies to recommit to the importance of higher education and its opening welcome remarks. Professor Oyoli.
Thank you very much, Professor Damti Tefera. It's my pleasure to welcome every one of us to this webinar on the post-summit of the EU-Africa that was held some few weeks ago. The intention of today's seminar is to look at the implications for higher education. It's therefore my pleasure at this time to welcome to this platform our friend and our sister Deidre Lennon from the European Commission, the DG of INTPA, who is going to be the first speaker. At this particular time, I want to welcome Deidre to come on the platform. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you very much, Professor.
Yeah.
Good morning, participants. If you allow me, I'm just going to share my screen. There we go. And move this. Can you see my presentation? Yes, I shall be very brief. I would just like to walk you through my summary of what came out from the summit and the implications that I see for higher education in Africa in particular. There we go. Some of you might know me. I was before working in DG Education and Culture and have now moved to DG International Partnerships and working in specifically the unit which was dealing with the preparations for the summit at the European Commission and in the follow-up now. Sorry, I'm just getting my, my presentation organized. In March 2020, the European Commission and the External Action Service wished to reflect upon its relationship with Africa, due principally from developments that were taking place at economic, political, social, demographic, climate, and environmental level. This was an attempt to define a relationship with Africa, which was very much based on mutual relationships and less based on a donor-recipient type of relationship that had been the case until then. The communication was organized, so to say, around 5 partnerships, with education, human development, clearly identified under the Partnership for Sustainable Growth and Jobs. 1 week after this communication was published, the world went into lockdown. This communication was sort of prepared as a basis for the 6th African European Union Summit, which was due to take place in 2020 also, but which couldn't go ahead, obviously, for, due to the pandemic. So the summit was held last month in Brussels, and heads of state from Africa, heads of state from the European Union met together. And I could say it, at least from our perspective, and I think Africa's perspective also, it was a very successful summit. The declaration, which I think you've received with the agenda, is much more concise, political, and shorter than in previous occasions. And it's very clear that leaders on both sides have committed to a series of joint commitments, joint putting their forces together in the partnership. In that sense, it's a renewed partnership which is going ahead. Now, perhaps 1 or 2 weeks after the summit, the war in Ukraine broke out. And now, whilst we were in a complicated situation due to COVID, now we have another situation where we're starting to see implications in terms of food prices, fuel prices, which are impacting both Europe and Africa. One of the objectives of the partnership, Europe's partnership with Africa, is to support Africa in particular in relation to its strategic autonomy. So to boost Africa's capacity to react to crises and situations such as this. So that makes the deliveries of the commitments of the summit all the more urgent. With the summit, the European Union published what it's called its offer to support this relationship in the coming years. It's called the Global Gateway Africa-Europe Investment Package. It's a political package, but with very clear and concrete orientations. As I mentioned, it's responding to the need to build Africa's strategic autonomy and respond to its ambitions. It's part of the EU's new strategy, the Global Gateway, which is to boost smart, clean, and secure links in digital, energy, and transport, and also to strengthen health, education, and research systems across the world, in this case, Africa. 150 billion euro are being made available in investments through this Global Gateway package. Now, I should underline this package is a package which is putting together both European Union programs, funding, etc., and the member states, the EU member states funding and programs. The Global Gateway investment package, I'm sorry, you might have a black line, I'll try and move it as much as possible. The Global Gateway Investment Package is clustered into 4 areas. The first is the green transition. Then we have the digital transition, accelerating growth and jobs, and then human development. We'll be addressing sustainable energy, biodiversity, agri-food systems, climate resilience, transport, private sector, economic integration. So for instance, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, value chains, diversification, sustainable finance, science, technology and innovation, health, in particular, boosting the capacity of Africa to develop its own vaccines and boost its pharmaceutical and technology products, and education with a particular focus on skills development. If I already ask a question in relation to today's agenda, I would wonder where Africa's universities can place themselves in relation to these areas, because these are where the efforts are going to be put in the next few years. And I think it would be important that Africa's universities can position themselves in these areas, position themselves in terms of skills development, in terms of research, in terms of innovation. And so I'll go into this a little bit further after. How are we going to undertake the delivery, so to say, of this investment package? So these are concrete interventions, flagship programs, which have different types of financing. There's budget support projects, but also bringing in the financial institutions and leveraging funding through blending and guarantees. Most of the action takes place at national level and at regional level, with then an articulation at continental level. And we're talking about Team Europe, so it's the European Commission plus its member states working together. The initiatives are a combination of efforts on both sides, with national authorities, African national authorities, local authorities, regional bodies, etc. And particularly important, obviously, the private sector. Because we're talking about investments in particular. And then we have dialogue platforms accompanying this, and the European delegations are sort of the first point of contacts at country level. I wanted to show you this picture. This picture was presented at PIDA, the PIDA annual event in Nairobi last week. So it's the program for infrastructure development for Africa. And it's the result of a study undertaken by the European Joint Research Centre. They are identifying the strategic corridors in which to develop the investments in terms of transport. To do that, they have undertaken a series of analyses looking into indicators for jobs, for green growth, and for human development. So taking into account all the different benefits, but also challenges in opting for one corridor rather than another. Now, I think this is a picture here, because when you think about transport, you think about value chains.
Pensez au transport, vous pensez au
Think about
Pensam em mudança de valor.
regulation, and you think about jobs, and you think about skills. So somehow, you know, what we need to see is a coherence in the package, whereby opportunities which are offered through these big infrastructure and investment packages are trickled through the system, so that the different, how can I put it, intervenants are boosting their side of the package. An opportunity is there, and how can that then be picked up by the university, for instance, in terms of contents of teaching, in terms of research, and in terms of innovation. I think I've nearly said it all in that sense. The opportunities that I see here are there are two types of opportunities. One is for the higher education system in itself. Higher education, we know, builds up individuals, it builds up future citizens, it supports values. That is one point. Education needs to be quality and inclusive. So these are targets. What we need to do is to accept the fact that population is growing faster than jobs are being created. There are opportunities now that are being offered around these investment projects, and the universities need to put themselves in a position where they are leading this. They are leading rather than countries and governments needing to rely on their on consultancy companies, on data coming from different regions of the world. Universities, I think, are in a very strong position to be guiding, providing, and building up the capacity of the systems. You have, you know, probably a lot of the instruments that are made available. Additional funding, significant additional funding is going into all these programs, so please use them. Erasmus, Horizon Europe, Marie Curie, the ARISE program, the Intra-Africa Mobility Program, HAQUA Initiative. The member states have their programs. You have a lot of networks and centers of excellence, World Bank, the PAO, ALUA, etc. Use these networks to put forward projects and initiatives. And then at national level, the European delegations can be a contact point for you, but I would really recommend strategizing your approaches on how you can contribute to this important agenda for Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deidre. Good to see you. Thank you for capturing that comprehensive document into succinct slides, which we can actually get a handle on. At this stage, I will invite Professor Oyewole himself to give us his opening remarks.
Professor Damtu,
yeah.
Could you please speak to the interpretation availability? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I hope you heard me, my comments around Deidre's note. At this stage, I would like to invite Professor Oyewole himself for the opening remarks. Professor Oyewole. Yes, Prof. Oyewole. Unmute, Prof. Oyewole, please. Professor Oyewole, unmute.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I will want us to follow the program that we have set up for this meeting. Following the welcome remarks which you have made, and which I've also made some comments at the beginning, Deidre, we want to thank Deidre for the very comprehensive presentation she's made. I think at this time, we just need to call on the next speaker from DAAD, and followed by the African Union Commission before it will not get to my turn to speak. Thank you.
Good morning. I thank you, Olusula. It's so great to see you after so many years in this position. Good morning to Deirdre as well. Good to see you, even though we're both based in Brussels. We meet virtually. Damtev, Ramon, thank you all for this invitation, and thank you to give the opportunity to the German Academic Exchange Service so prominently in this webinar to say a few words about the importance of the results, the outcomes of this European Union, African Union Summit. Now, the German Academic Exchange Service as an organization is very much, of course, encouraged by the outcomes because they place higher education, research, and innovation at a very central role to achieve global outcomes, to achieve progress, to strengthen the community, to strengthen the cooperation between the continents. And we welcome that very much. As an association of universities ourselves committed to international exchange, this is really something to congratulate all of those that were involved. And I personally, I think my first interaction with this topic was 2008, and we have been advocating for stronger collaboration in higher education and research between Europe and Africa since then. And it's so great to see that there's now an innovation agenda being concluded. And I think that's really something to look forward to. Now, what does that mean in practice? I assume this is background noise. Everybody can hear me, right? Just not? Okay, good. Otherwise, I would be speaking into outer space. So the development of instruments that match the ambitions formulated by the summit is, I think, something we all need to reflect upon. There are a number of instruments mentioned in the documents. Deirdre, you also referred to some of the activities. However, I think if we go through the spirit of the text and the ideas formulated, we will notice that there might be some gaps in the instruments. There might be some difficulties in addressing everything that the ambition is. So I think the work to be done now is to fill the ambitions outlined in the summit's document with concrete support mechanisms delivered by existing instruments such as Erasmus Plus and Horizon Europe, but also with maybe new initiatives, new support mechanisms that are also part of the work that, for instance, the DG that Deirdre Lennon works for, INPA, the International Partnerships, which has a long tradition in working in the education field, but not, unfortunately, not in the higher education field. So I think there's also a scope for peer learning within the European Union and the European institutions on how higher education and research can be integrated in this international partnership approach. So that's something where I see an opportunity, but also quite some task ahead of us. What is important is that, and I think this is also something where we need to seize the opportunity, because it has been acknowledged by what Deirdre said. It's not just an agenda between the European Union and the African Union, it's also an agenda by the member states, the unions, but also if you go break down, it's not just the member states, it's also each and every one of us, the institutions, the higher education organizations, the researchers, the students that can benefit from us. It's like with European integration, it's not just the European Union, it's all of us. And I think this is really something, if we transfer it to the topic of today, the summit results, if we want to bring them alive and make them productive, we have all to work, we all have to work with them, and we have to grab them and take them forward in many occasions. And I think this webinar is an excellent opportunity to do so. While doing this, we need to also ensure that there is complementarity and that we build upon existing initiatives. So as an example, of course, the AD has been working in the field of higher education cooperation with the African continent for many years. We have our African Centers of Excellence program, but also the World Bank has an African Centers of Excellence program, which is run by AAU. So in that sense, there are some overlaps, and it's definitely something to look into. How can we build upon experiences, synergies, cooperation, activities at national, at regional, at continental level, and how do we avoid duplication and ensure maximum cooperation? I think this is a layer where we need to be very concerned about, because the risk is, of course, that if we establish, and this is something that we we find in the working documents that there should be new or further centers of excellence. You can't have enough centers of excellence I mean, this is an important topic, so I welcome the fact that there should be them, but we should learn from experiences. We should try to see how they complement each other, and we should really try to maybe also then even make this initiative even better and bigger than every other initiative that has been before. Which brings me to the honest involvement of stakeholders in every type of process. And I think this is something which I'm confident that this will happen, because it's already a fact that we've been talking. And I think there's no other process between continents, between Europe, the European Union, and other regions worldwide that has such a broad scope of consultations, involvement, projects ongoing. I personally am involved also in working with Southeast Asia. And to some extent, I would wish that there would be this type of forum as we have here, involving the higher education sector with ASEAN. So this is really something to build upon. It's an opportunity that we seize this stakeholder dialogue and take it honestly and earnestly, and to move the higher education and research community into becoming actors of our bicontinental collaboration. We can do so, as I said, if we have the matching instruments, and we can do so if we have a clear focus on impact. So we need to deliver tangible results that improve the educational experience of students, the professional expertise of researchers, and in the end, solving common problems, be it tackling climate change, be it the question of nutrition or food security. All of that is something that belongs to the realm of the outcomes, on the reason why we cooperate. And I think we need to have this focus on what can we achieve together at the back of our minds, but also always in front of us. So let's work together. I think from a German side, many institutions are interested and motivated to do so. We've had our national feedback round already last week. We are preparing our contribution to the consultation that is ongoing until early May, as an organization active in the field of cooperation with the African continent. And I hope that many of you here present today also seize this opportunity. And I really look forward to further concrete initiatives that bring us together as people, as global citizens. And maybe one last word, because the situation in Ukraine might be far away from your daily situation on the African continent. For us here in Brussels, it is very much nearby, and it really changes the way we operate. And I think we need to keep this in mind also when we want to safeguard our cooperation with our partner continent, Africa, that we do not have this absorption of focus, which is natural because of the crisis we're in, impact our cooperation with the African continent, because it's not it's not an option. We need to come forward and need to continue our collaboration. But at the moment, the situation in Europe is so tense that I do see a certain risk, and I hope that this is something that to some extent is also understood by our colleagues on the African continent. So that's it for me. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to further comments on this important developments.
Just to share with you, apparently what happens is that both the Secretary General and I have different programs. This is what happens when you play with the programs with multiple parties. So my Secretary General and I have different programs. So we will stick to the latest one, which as we have shared with all of you, accordingly we'll pursue it as follows. We apologize for that, of course. Just to pick up where Michael noted here, we can assure you that the challenge and the problems and the conflict that happens in that part of the world also is reflected all over the world. You have seen the food prices and the issues that are also arising from that. With that, and going back to our latest program, I will invite a welcome remark by Professor Ramon. And once again, I apologize for that. Professor Ramon, please. Unmute yourself.
Good morning, bonjour, bon dia, sabaho al Cair. I have very little to add to what Deirdre Lennon and Michael Herrick have already explained. But as I am an old professor, but with the long experience as senior official in Brussels, I will try to explain to you as clearly as I can the challenge of implementing the African Union, European Union Summit Declaration in the area of higher education from the European Union side. The European Union is not a state, is not an aggregation of states. It's a very peculiar, unique political, legal, and institutional entity whose main characteristic is that it cannot do anything. It can only do what the founding treaties have conferred to it to do, and with the procedures established in the treaties. This means that for the European Union, the main problem is not what it wants to do, but what it can do. Because it is not a state that, provided it is in the framework of the Constitution, can do anything. I insist, the European Union can only do what it can do. So the challenge is that we have a summit between the European Union and the African Union. The summit provided a joint declaration in which the parties, the European Union and its member states and the African Union, express an intention of doing something. The summit declaration is essentially an expression of wish, of willingness, of will. The challenge is, what can the European Union do? Can, I insist, can, what it is able to do. And the problem is that what it is able to do has already been decided in June last year, because it was in June last year that the regulation establishing the policy of international cooperation for the European Union was approved. And this regulation has not been changed by the summit. It remains. So, as I have written very summarily in the chat, the problem is how to fit into the regulation the statement of willingness of the summit declaration. And believe me, this is not easy. This is a tremendous challenge, not only for all of us passionate of higher education and passion of cooperation with Africa, but it is an enormous challenge for EU good faith officials like someone we have here, like Mrs. Deirdre Lennon or Claire Herman, that have to discover how to fit into the 78 pages of thick small letter of that regulation you have in the chat, the general statements of the summit declaration. Believe me, this is tremendously difficult. As it is tremendously difficult, we must be attentive. We cannot think that with an event of post-summit event, we have solved the problem. If we do not remain vigilant, attentive, with a continuous attention to the implementation of the summit and of its declaration, I guarantee you, the willingness will leave its place to what can be done. And in a few weeks, everyone will continue to think on what is in the rule book, which is the regulation, and everyone will have forgotten the summit. Africa and the African Union and the African Union Commission must be attentive to the implementation of the summit declaration. The EU must be attentive. We at HACWA, the flagship project of the European Union that is contributing to organize this event, must be attentive. And I guarantee you, OBREAL Global will continue to be attentive. So OBREAL Global proclaims its willingness to continue working on the summit declaration, on its implementation, and trying to contribute modestly, but ambitiously modestly, as I used to say, to the work of the very few European Union good officials interested in higher education and in Africa that also have to face this challenge. But they will be only able to face this challenge if we keep exerting some pressure on them, on the African Union, and on the European Union. Maybe I have a bit oversimplified the situation. Lecturers sometimes have to do this. Decide what is the essential point, concentrate on it, and get rid of the details. This is what I have tried to do, but I think this gives all of you some clear orientation of how we must continue the follow-up of this otherwise very positive summit just held between the African Union and the European Union a few weeks ago. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramon, for that concise comment. In fact, which Deirdre already captured it very well. It's about monitoring and implementation of the commitments that are made by the heads of state. Yes, I cannot agree with you more, Ramon. Thank you very much. With that, I would call the African Union Commission representative, Mr. Chigozie Okonkwo. Is Mr. Okonkwo with us? Yes, I see him there. You are welcome, Mr. Okonkwo. Unmute.
Enoch, please make him a co-host, please.
Okay, I can also do that. Where is he now? If I can find him, ask to unmute. Yeah. Yep. Yes, he's with us.
Thank you so much, Professor Damtu. For a moment, I thought my computer was misbehaving. But of course, let me, at the outset, already thank the HACA implementing partners for organizing this post-AU-EU summit. My name is Chigozie Emmanuel Okonkwo, a program officer at the African Union Commission. This event comes at an opportune time as a follow-up to the other engagements that have been held at the highest level at the recent AU-EU summit, and of course at the technical levels within specific program areas. And it underscores the importance of better cooperation and synergies. The previous speakers have already alluded to this. But colleagues, I would like to very quickly point that Europe is one of Africa's strongest partner with rich and prolific past, present and future reflected in the extensive web of bilateral and multilateral relationship and activities. The haka is a testament to that. We at the AUC acknowledge that within the partnership, some of the programs we have jointly implemented have generated tangible outputs and contributed to the knowledge economy of our continent, and as well as that of Europe. With the EU-Africa cooperation, concrete aims were identified within the implementation action plans based on our common priorities, thereby strengthening our cooperation. Higher education is a common priority. Research and innovation is also another common priority. For us at the AUC, this was a direct and innovative way of implementing the Agenda 2063, the Continental Education Strategy, as well as the Science, Technology, Innovation Strategy for Africa, STISA. In the area of higher education, our cooperation have a strong focus on supporting continental approaches that feeds on regional integration processes in Africa, be it through the harmonization of education systems, quality assurance, mutual recognition of qualifications, sharing of best practices, or even mobility. There is a strong demand. We recognize that there is a strong demand from universities across the continent and in Europe especially to strengthen the capacities and tools provided to the African counterparts with whom they have long-lasting relationship. Europe has a unique experience in harmonization of education programs at continental level. It is our hope that this experience will continue to be useful to the African continent. Colleagues have mentioned the importance of strengthening existing initiatives in the higher education sector, and I want to re-echo that. Existing initiative in higher education delivers upon the priorities of Agenda 2063 and other policy and technical documents within the African Union, especially as it relates to higher education. More importantly, it serves the objective of the African Continental Free Trade Area by facilitating the free movement of persons through creation of common standards and procedures for mutual recognition of qualifications, thereby facilitating mobility. To ensure that these collaborations deliver on the best result, we of course continue to count on the existing structure of partners to secure and continually secure the technical assistance, while the AU continually galvanize the political endorsement and participation of relevant stakeholders, particularly the member states. As it relates to institutional sustainability, the initiatives that we have embedded mechanisms to not only build capacities of institutions, just like we've seen with the numerous activities under HACA, institutions' capacities are being built, be it through the numerous rollouts of quality assurance, best practice sharing, or exchanges that we've seen under HACA. We've also seen that it also creates platforms that facilitate the contribution of African expertise to the technical know-how through exchanges within institutions and among key stakeholders. The AU will continue to play its role in coordinating this pool of expertise and stakeholders under the continental umbrella and fostering further contribution to the initiative. On the fundamental question that was posed as to what is the next steps after the summit, and of course the agenda for higher education, I think my position on this would be for us to really promote the uptake and upscaling of existing initiatives. We have seen, like I mentioned earlier, the tremendous results that these initiatives have produced in the course of the lifespan, be it through mobility programs or through quality assurance or harmonization, what have we. We think that that is the best way to go. In addition to that point, we must also continue to strengthen synergies and delivery of results through the following. One, we must agree on concrete priorities. These are the stakeholders of higher education on the core. If we collectively agree on the concrete priorities, we can push for those priorities. We must facilitate engagement with member states particularly. We must leverage on strategic linkages with related continental initiatives. We must not act in silos. We must work together. We must increase joint communication and visibility of these existing initiatives. And we should also take note of the importance of speed, scale, and innovative ways of doing things, sustainability, and value for money. To conclude, let me reiterate that the AU-EU Summit has shown in clear terms the commitment on both sides to the vision of the partnership built on mutual respect and accountability, shared values, equality between partners, and reciprocal commitment. For us at the AUC, we'll see to the implementation of those visions shown in the declaration. Our experience and wealth of ideas would, of course, put into, will give us reasonable to-do list of concrete actions that we all, as critical stakeholders of higher education, should take forward in our respective capacity. Let me end by, of course, once again, thanking each and every one of colleagues, the implementing partners, be it the Association of African University, through the able Secretary General, Professor Oyewole, and of course, Professor Ramon, for leading this narrative of making our higher education landscape a better place. I thank you so much, Professor Damtu. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okonkwo, for those key points. I'm not going to intend to summarize, but I'll probably come back to it at the conclusion. But thank you for that guiding words and comments. With that, I will now call upon Professor Oyewole for his remarks around perceived opportunities for Africa and possible synergies. Professor Oyewole, the floor is yours. Please unmute Professor Oyewole, or I'll try to do that. You can add, yeah.
Thank you. I also need to be allowed to share my slides.
Carry on, Prof. Prof. Oyewole is in the process of sharing his slides. Please bear with us. Yes, we see the slide.
Okay.
Would
Thank you very much.
Would you put it in a view mode, Prof. Oyewole? Yes, good.
Thank you very much. My intention in this presentation, they are twofold. Firstly, I want to look at the contents of the summit as it relates to higher education and especially universities. My second objective in this presentation is to emphasize on the challenges, the opportunities, and the inspirations that universities can derive from this EU African Union Summit. Indirectly, what I'm doing today is to speak to universities in connection with this EU-AU Summit. I will want to make a brief summary of the contents of the outcome of the summit as it relates to education. The first thing that came out from the summit is that emphasis will be placed on education by both the European Union and the African Union Commission. It says we will place education at the heart of our collective Africa-Europe efforts towards an integrated and prosperous Africa. All the activities will be driven by education. And that summit noted that the education that we need to lay emphasis on is not just university education, but all levels of education. And special emphasis will be placed on quality of education, access to education, and fostering skills for life and employment through education. I've looked at so many pages of the document, and I've decided to look at the areas connected with higher education and universities. And the first area, focal areas for support in relation to higher education is the area of skills. The summit decided that it is very important to equip young people with skills for the future. The summit recognizes the high population of young people in Africa. And in order to prepare Africa for the future, we need to equip them with necessary skills. Part of the plan or the intention of the summit was the need to create chances for decent employment in Africa. The second focus in the summit deliberations connected with education is connected with the issue of teachers, regional teachers initiative. The summit recognizes the need to improve the quality of teachers in Africa. Specifically, it was recognized that the skills and competencies of our teachers need to be improved if we are going to improve our education. Digital literacy.
Bear with us.
Area that was upon area of focus. The third area of focus of the summit was the need to support global partnership for education. It was necessary that to transform higher education and indeed education in Africa, partnership is very important. And the type of partnership I recognize is not just inter-partnership. We need a South-South-North collaboration to drive education in Africa. And lastly, the summit recognized the need to support youth mobility for Africa. These are the four major areas that I see the summit discussing and agree on in relation to Africa. Now, after looking at the summit, I will now want us to look at ourselves as universities and higher education people. What are the implications of this summit for those of us who are in the university system? One, the summit is speaking to us that we need to improve ourselves in three important areas. Number one, quality. Number two, skills and competencies. And number three, employability of our graduates. Universities need to look at three important issues and see what they can do to ensure that their university programs meet three important issues. These three, to me, are the major implications for higher education. Now, after looking at the implications, I now decide to look at the opportunities that can be derived by higher education through this EU Africa Summit. And I'm seeing four or five important opportunities that universities and higher education need to connect themselves to. The first one is that universities need to connect themselves to issues about skills and competencies of their graduates. When you read the summit, reports, emphasis appears to be given to TVET to the extent that if universities fail to ensure that they inculcate TVET contents into their learning outcomes, universities may no longer be relevant. And that is, for this, is very important that universities in Africa should review their curricula. The second thing that universities need to do is to promote some strategic learning outcomes that can help their graduates to become employable. So issues about skills and competencies are opportunities that our university can derive we should be concerned about youth employment skills. These are well discussed during the summit. The second opportunity that I believe that universities can derive from the outcome of this summit is the need to focus on quality and quality assurance process. The summit made one important recognition that we need to strengthen internal quality assurance mechanisms in Africa. And especially now, after the pandemic, there's a need to develop digital strategies, tools, and policies to implement quality assurance systems. It is in this context that I believe that the AQRM, Africa Quality Assurance Rating Mechanisms, that have been developed by the African Union Commission need to be emphasized. It's an instrument that can help universities and higher education to improve their internal quality assurance mechanisms. The third challenge or opportunity that the summit is posing to universities is the area of research. One of the lessons of COVID-19 to Africa is the need for Africa to focus on research that can move their development. There's a need for us to have African-based research, for us to be able to solve some challenges facing us. That summit identifies some research needs that Africans need to commit themselves to. We need research that can help us to overcome the challenges of climate change. The summit also recognized that we need to emphasize to focus our research on food systems and agriculture. And the summit believes that there's a need to support what I call STEMA, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and the arts. And indeed, for universities to be relevant in our society, for universities to contribute to the development of Africa, science is one of the tools that we need to commit ourselves to. Number 4 opportunity that I see through the summit is the need to support academic mobility schemes for Africa. The summit recognizes the need to support youth mobility. And I believe I can read into it that when you talk about youth mobility, you're also concerned about transferability of credits from one institution to another and recognition of certificates and diplomas across Africa. And it is in this wise, I believe that Africa needs to develop what we call the African Credit Union System, the qualification frameworks for all areas and levels of education in Africa. I'm aware that we have the Addis Convention for recognition, comparability of certificates, diplomas, and degrees. These are areas that I believe the African Union need to commit themselves to. Thank God for the presentation made by the African Union Commission. They've said that we need to re-emphasize what we have been doing before. These are schemes that we started before now, which we need to improve beyond what it is. We also need the African scholarship schemes, similar to what is happening in the Erasmus program. Student mobility and academic mobility are very important for such a time as we are in now. If I'm going to summarize the opportunities that that summit is posing to African higher education system, it is in this my 5th recognition. And that number 5 is that there is need for new innovations in African universities. Every one of us listening to me today, we know one fact. University no longer have the monopoly of knowledge and learning. Now people find it easy to do short-term virtual courses and acquire some skills. It is very important that our universities respond to the need of this time. And that's why one of the activities recognized in the summit is the need to promote digitalization. Universities should promote the digitalization of their education system, digitalization of their learning systems, digitalization of research and access to education. So it's very important that we ensure that African universities become innovative universities. There are some special innovations that are necessary, that are ongoing, which we need to commit ourselves to. Artificial intelligence. We need to look at the issue of blended and hybrid courses across institutions in Africa. This is very important for us at such a time as this. Our universities should encourage open educational resources, which can make our students to learn beyond our own institutions. And then we need to encourage open science. All I've just said in this presentation is that the summit is very important in that it has emphasized the political collaboration between the European Union and the African Union Commission. But for us as higher education institutions, we need to derive inspirations from this document and ensure that we are relevant to the development of Africa. The need of Africa today is the education that can help us to get the Africa that we need. And I believe that from all that I've said so far, that universities should commit themselves to improvement, the promotion of skills and competencies. We should promote quality and quality assurance. Research should be very important to us now. We should also promote academic mobility schemes for Africa. And lastly, we need to become innovative and employ digital systems for our various programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Oyewole, for the excellent and exhaustive presentation. I think this is also particularly important because you actually try to unpack the summit and its declaration as relevant to higher education institutions. Typically, they often tend to be oblivious to these multilateral regimes. And thank you so much for that, Professor Oyewole. Now I will call upon Professor Albert Senyumba of the Association for the Development of Education in Africa. The floor is yours, Mr. Albert. Please unmute, Mr. Albert.
Yes, I'm muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay. I had prepared a very short presentation that can help me to move quickly into my presentation. If you're, let me see if I can get it, and I will take you through quickly. Of course, I think my predecessors, including the dear Secretary General, I think you have said it all. I think the major issues have already been raised, which I think it's very important. While we are tackling the issue of partnership with the EU, to me, let me bring it another way of looking at the situation we are in, so that we can better position ourselves vis-a-vis partnership. What I believe is important in a partnership, it has to be a win-win situation. And for one to make sure it's a win-win, there has to be some level of strength. Otherwise, a partnership will not actually sustain. If one side is weak, the other one is strong. So how do we make sure we position ourselves? And by positioning, let's make sure we understand where we stand, and of course, our aspiration to move forward. So let me start. So ADEA is a network of ministries of education and partners, and we work through what we call inter-country quality nodes, which are really platforms hosted by the country. So in this particular case, the inter-country quality node on higher education is hosted by the Ministry of Higher Education, Scientific Research and Innovation in Senegal, Dakar. Again, all these issues have already been said. I'm sure the Secretary General alluded to this. We are looking at three major challenges as a continent. One, improving access to higher education. So we definitely need to create opportunity for an efficient and a competitive higher education capable of producing qualified and operational graduates. Second is, of course, the quality of training that we provide. And this is where the issue of quality assurance becomes so important. And I know There are already efforts that are going on to streamline and harmonize qualification framework within the continent. To me, this is a key priority, and we should put everything possible to make sure that we have a common agenda as far as this is concerned. Of course, the third one is producing relevant and innovative knowledge. This is where I also echo the need to move into digitalization. Digitalization is no longer an option. It's something we need to cope with, starting with education and higher education in particular. And it has a clear implication in strengthening our research and development. We conducted a mapping report on higher education in Africa, where we selected 5 renowned researchers in each of the region. And the objective was to understand the strengths and weaknesses of higher education and scientific research system in Africa. Of course, we collect data on current good practices, because it's also important not only to collect or to focus on issues, but also look at good practices that are happening, because our role as an organization is also to create opportunity to learn from each other, peer learning and knowledge exchange. There are 5 critical issues that came out. Issues of governance of higher education, issues of improving teaching and learning, and this is where digitalization becomes so critical. Issue of research, connecting research with challenges and the issues the continent is facing. Because we need to move away from just having a research for the sake of research. A research should actually be addressing a given problem that has been identified within our societies. We also know the challenge around funding for higher education. Funding is so important, and this is where I feel we need to innovate. We cannot expect governments only to support higher education funding. We need to look at alternative ways of capitalizing on partnership, innovation to find alternative mechanisms to finance higher education and research in particular. And lastly, because of the sake of this particular meeting, cooperation and partnership. Of course, it's important to talk about partnership with Europe, but I still believe we have a room to improve partnership within the continent. Let me pick a simple example. When you look at the issues of COVID-19 from its beginning, universities elsewhere in Europe and US, they played a key role in terms of research and getting the right answers and responses to COVID. In Africa, we worked country by country, where we should actually have worked as a network of universities and research centers. So again, let's make sure partnership is actually happening within the continent before moving to another continent. This is going to make us more powerful, more strong, actually to articulate on our needs and therefore engage accordingly. I'm sharing a quick recommendation here on the strategy. Of course, we need to improve governance and management of the subsector. There are different things. We need to improve the governance, modernize governance. We need to have strong information system and planning tools, so critical. And therefore, we need to strengthen quality assurance bodies. This is where the continental regional harmonization of qualification framework becomes so critical. The autonomy of public higher education is so critical, but we definitely need to make sure that we understand what we mean by autonomy. We will definitely need government, but we need to look at other opportunities around to strengthen the autonomy of the higher education system. The teaching and learning environment, as I said, we need to rely on digital technologies. There are great opportunities here. We can also learn from others. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are great opportunities. It's just to open our eyes and make sure that we can adapt technology into our context. There's an issue again, as I said, professionalization of STEM. I think, again, Professor alluded to this. There's a need to strengthen STEM because we believe this is where Africa can have really a competitive advantage. Distance education is happening, but we need to broaden up, make sure that we can increase the number and provide and meet the required infrastructure and assessment as well. There's a social implication for higher education. Let's make sure we also consider disadvantaged social groups. in this regard, because we see education as an opportunity for one to be able to engage and be able to make his life or her life accordingly. The financing, again, looking at alternative way of financing higher education is going to be so important. Developing long-term financial scheme. There are different ways that we need to look at, but the point here is going beyond the public funding scheme and look at other alternatives, including income generation activities that we need to promote within our higher education. We also need to encourage companies to invest in research, because public funding will not be sufficient, but private need to see the value that they get out of this research. And this is really something important to take into account. I was talking about structure to promote operationalization of research. This is something that we definitely need to look at. And national research governance is equally important. We have conducted a strategic framework to look into where this intercountry quality needs to go, what we need to promote. And you can see one of the areas that we would like to promote again is the possibility for engaging with technical and financial partners to see how best we can support universities working with other partners, including the AAU. So in conclusion, Africa development highly rests on higher education system, and it can play a very important role. And there are here three important things we need to look at. Contribution to human capital development, because when you look at the Africa free market trade area, there's a single thing that is so critical. For it to succeed, we need to make sure our universities and technical vocational training centers produce the qualified manpower that will support this integration, this continental integration. So it's so important that we attach an important thing on that. Of course, as I said, promoting public-private partnership is a key, because we need to raise policy dialogue so that we are able to create opportunity for absorbing graduates, for the labor market to be able to absorb the great number of graduates coming from higher education, making ourselves demand-driven as opposed to supply-driven. Lastly, last but not least, supporting scientific and technical expertise available, because in the end, we are trying to improve the livelihood in our societies, and therefore it's important that we value the scientific and technical expertise available. So in brief, this is what I wanted to share during this meeting, and I think we're talking the same language. Let's come together, let's raise our capacity to coordinate better, let's improve our higher education for the future of our youth and our continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Albert Mova. I hope I didn't butcher your name.
No, you try your best.
Thank you for that. I just thank you for that comment, which was actually aligned to what Professor Oyewole was articulating already. But just one thing caught my attention in terms of research. You said research for the sake of it. I'm not going to be belaboring this issue, but probably will bring it up later. But it's also very important for Africa to look at the critical importance of fundamental research and basic research. I'll make, with that comment, I will move on to Ms. Catherine Ngila of the African, what is it?
Academy of Sciences.
Academy of Sciences, AAS. I always refer to it as AAS. So African Academy of Sciences. Catherine, it's yours.
All right, thank you. And just allow me, of course, to present and, of course, to share the slides. Let me first say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody who is here. I would like to, and of course, I've been introduced. My name is Catherine Ngila, Professor Ngila, the Acting Executive Director of the African Academy of Sciences. I would like to thank the organization of this by the African Association of African Universities, Professor Oyewole and the team, Professor Tefela, and all the other agencies of the AU that have presented in one way or the other. And of course, those are just my contacts. And so in terms of the presentation, I just wanted to talk about the African Academy of Sciences. I know Professor Tefera, you know, Professor Oyewole knows, and many other people know, but just in case some people are not very much familiar, I thought it would be important for me to mention. And of course, the strategy and also looking at the European Union, AU partnerships, and looking at the situation analysis, what is happening in Africa, particularly looking at also the EU 2017-2022 summits and the take-home messages, and of course look at some of the things that or programs that the AS has to promote a capacity building in the African continent. And so we say that the vision of the African Academy of Sciences, it is to transform lives through science, and the mission is to leverage resources through research excellence and thought leadership for sustainable development. And we do that because we do partner with African Union, particularly African Union Commission, and also the AUD and EPAD, to implement some of the programs of the AU. And so historically, and also the background of the African Academy of Sciences, which is located in Nairobi, headquartered in Nairobi, but has got 5 offices in the 5 regions in Africa. Yes.
I don't want to stop you, but I'm sorry to do that.
Yes.
You have a limited amount of time. If you are going to spend a lot of time on African Academy of Sciences, you may probably don't have enough time to reflect on the key issues.
Right. All right. Okay. Yeah, no, I've taken note of that, and I'll just make highlights. So the 5 key research areas, themes, we're looking at climate change, health, gender and education, social science, early career researchers. These are all different areas, the African Academy of Sciences as thematic areas. And also we've got an agenda. 2015, there was, we created Alliance for Accelerating Excellence in Research. And one of the things that we did was to come up with 4 goals. One of them was to build R&D, supporting development of innovation and science-driven entrepreneurship, identifying, supporting rising researchers or leaders, and of course, identifying some of the key goals. But when you look at the Africa context, particularly climate change, food security, poverty, and high disease burden, we realize that Africa is really disadvantaged, and the only way we can get ourselves out of this situation is to partner. Partnerships is the way to go. And of course, for priorities in the Africa member states to recognize that investment in research is very, very important. And some of the areas that the African Academy of Sciences did was to look at 4 broad areas, for example, building R&D, innovation, rising and emerging researchers, like I said before, critical areas. And previously, we've been funded by different partners, the global partners, to look at grand challenges that are affecting Africa. But very important also, early career researchers has been one of the top priorities that we have engaged with in terms of coming up with different programs, including climate change, future leaders, capacity building, and related other things. Climate change has really been funded highly, but of course, the whole idea we are expecting to have world-class researchers in Africa, of course, prudent financial management, individual professional development networks, institutional strengthening, strong community public engagement, and of course, future impact on entrepreneurship. I want to give an example of one of the programs that the European Union and African Union have partnered through the EC and AUC. And one of them is what we call the Africa Research Excellence. But also before I look at that, of course, when you look at the 2017-2022, the summits are focusing on green economy. We have had that, digital, sustainable growth, and also jobs, peace and governance, and migration and mobility. So, and some of the objectives is, of course, it is all focusing on research, education, innovation. How can we do that? Of course, we have to invest in this and exploring different ways in which European and African national and other supranational bodies can be able to coordinate efforts and all to achieve a strategic development in the next. But when you look at the situation analysis in terms of research in Africa, we only see that 0.5% GDP we are investing, which is against a target of 1%. But if you look at the global stage, it's 1.7. So the question then is, what really Africa has to go and invest, and of course efforts, emphasizing on efforts that we can be able to empower Africa researchers so that we can position them to implement the AU Agenda 2063 as well as the Sustainable Development Goals. Again, continue with the framework, which I really don't want to belabor because I think it has been said by various presentations. We've got a program, like I said, the Africa Research Initiative on Scientific Excellence, which we call ARISE, which is a pilot program. And this is what I wanted probably just to talk about. The role is basically to encourage the policies in education and research, investment, and as well as, of course, resource mobilization and empowering African researchers. The African Academy of Sciences play this key role in terms of research management programs for Africa institutions, capacity building. Like I've said, these keywords keep on coming: collaboration, capacity building, leadership, building existing structures, and of course, targeting long-term objectives. And I think I've already said that. So specifically, and also now just about to summarize and to finish my presentation, is a program I talked about, an example of a program that is being funded in partnership between European Union, or that is European Commission, and African Union Commission. We call it Africa Research Initiatives for Scientific Excellence, which is a pilot program. And the main goal is enhancing capacities of emerging African researcher leaders, institutional research management, generating cutting-edge research. These are specific. This program, we are targeting 40 emerging researchers, African researchers in 40 different countries. Like I said, it is a pilot program. So therefore, we are hoping that European Commission should be able to, or rather is going to engage with African Union Commission to see whether we can now have phase 2 of this particular program. So out of the 40 emerging researchers, one researcher is entitled to about 500,000 euros. We are selecting deliberately, or rather the partnerships are selected deliberately, that you must have finished your PhD 2 years and also not more than 7 years. And there has to be, of course, governance of this particular program with scientific advisory committee, strategic steering committee, and so forth and so on. And the composition of the steering committee has got 3 members from European Commission, 2 members from African Union, and 1 person from the African Academy of Sciences. These are organizations, of course, affiliated with African Union. Of course, the African Academy of Sciences is one of them, Association of African Universities, that is where we are here today. Pan-African University with different branches in the 5 regions in Africa. Of course, the Africa Research and University Alliance, ARUA, and CDC, Africa CDC, but many others. I've talked about the various programs that the African Academy of Sciences is engaging, but I also like to highlight the good governance grant practice that the AES has got as a platform to do that.
Prof. Ngila, please summarize in 1 minute.
Yes, finished. So how do we implement partnerships? Hosting, workshops, conferences, disseminating and sharing experiences, joint project implementation, arranging meetings and workshops, skills training programs, and who is going to be involved? Of course, research, education, innovation partners, policies in both Africa and Europe, stakeholders in Africa, obviously, and developing policies. And of course, the partnerships together with a non-governmental organization. Thank you very much. I think I've come to the end of my presentation and I'll stop sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Prof. I appreciate that. Sorry for pushing you a bit.
Not a problem. All right.
In the interest of time, because we have 1 person and we are running short. Is Professor Amir Izzat Salama of the Association of Arab Universities with us? Prof, please take the floor if I don't see you for some reason. Is Prof Salama with us?
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
Prof.
well,
Salama.
I'm with you, but I was muted from your side.
Okay, good to see you, Prof. Salama.
Good to see you, Professor Tefera. It's a long time. Yes. Well, I'd like first to thank the Association of African Universities, Professor Ohelaya and Professor Tarrant from Opera Global for inviting me for this, for inviting the Association of Arab Universities for this meeting. And let me say that half of our members at the Association of Arab Universities are from African continent. So we have we are very interested in such meetings actually. Let me in brief say that, well, actually I agree completely with what Professor Oyolo presented. And I'm happy, I'm the last one to speak. So I think most of what I'm going to say was covered. But let me say that in brief that the functions of the universities, which it should fulfill traditionally, there are three main functions: teaching, research, community service, and knowledge and technology transfer. The content and the form of each of these functions depends in principle on the socio-economic context in which universities operate. But we can actually achieve this through several things, which I think this can be done in cooperation with the European Union by improving African academic quality, internationally oriented student and staff, and the national and international citizenship for students and staff from developing countries to revenue generation and brain gain, which are considered potential benefits. Of course, we can by improving opportunities for African students and faculty and positioning these places to be more attractive in the future, as collaborations are no longer limited to colleges in close proximity. By creating linkage amongst African academia and the researching community, this can be done by increasing the incentives and behaviors of individual academic entrepreneurs, breaking barriers to cooperation with public research institutions, and individual behaviors, change the individual behaviors and incentives, and removing organizational bottlenecks in developing countries. By also representing African higher education, the economic and social mission in Africa, and at a regional and at international horizon to communities and territories. Achieving the harmonization of higher education can be done through harmonizing of regions' degree, quality assurance, credit, and academic calendar systems. I mean the national qualification framework, where there is a running project nowadays between the European Union from one side and the African Union in developing an African qualification framework, which is an essential and very important project for the African universities to rely on a unified qualification frame which facilitates the mobility, accessibility, and even long life learning, and thus the quality of the programs that yield a solid set of required competencies at each level of study. A good African university education should train students as persons to broaden their mind and horizons, to allow them to see the relationships of apparently disparate phenomena, to acquire knowledge independently, and to develop the confidence to challenge authority or dogma. African universities have to offer a gender equity and equality among the female academic and higher education institutes, and promote healthy environment as well. Doing and establishing university partnerships provide a huge amount of opportunities for students and staff alike. They have to offer research opportunities and cultural awareness. Furthermore, institutions can offer international experiences, including study abroad programs and staff exchanges. Boosting and fostering the governance of higher education, research, and innovation in African academia, and improving access to quality public education in Africa. Converging for diversity and democracy in African higher education. by boosting higher education in Africa through shared massive open online courses, MOOCs, to keep track with the technology advancement in teaching and teaching tools used there. These are some points and thoughts which I wanted to share with you. And I think that I was very brief with you because of the time, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Salama, for being conscious about time and also for your excellent presentation. I apologize for the background noise. Listen, we are exactly on time, but I still have 1 minute before the concluding remarks. I don't think people would be unhappy if we pushed it for the next 5-10 minutes. On that account, I would entertain a couple of questions, not necessarily comments, but burning questions. I hope someone monitors the screen for any questions. Colleagues, help me here. If there are any, yes, I see a hand from Mr. Mekusi. Please introduce yourself and a quick question. Mekusi, he's gone, or I don't see a hand anymore. Right. If that is the case, I will probably offer an opportunity. Okay, Mr. Mekusi is back. Please unmute him. Let me try to unmute him. Unmute yourself, Mr. Mekusi. Okay. Yes. A quick question, Mr. Mekusi, and who you are.
Thank you very much. Yes, my question is very simple. There is the need for us to practically relate to challenges and support how to collaborate as part of practical solution in the area of skill acquisition. How can we achieve that? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm talking to Michael and other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see another hand from Mr. Gaspard. Mr. Gaspard, who you are? And just a quick question to us.
Thank you very much. I'm called Gaspard Banyankimbona, and I'm the Executive Secretary in the University Council for East Africa. So I want to thank the organizers of this particular meeting, and it's quite very, very interesting. I expected to get time to be able to deliver a message from Inter-University Council for East Africa, but I didn't get that opportunity.
Okay,
so
hold it, Mr. Gaspard. Let me give you that opportunity of an extended time to do that. We tried to reach you, but apparently there was some breakdown of communication. So let me give you this opportunity to do that, but not a long speech, if you don't mind.
No, definitely. In fact, I wanted to just extend and say that my submission was likely preempted by the presentation from Professor Oyewole and the other speakers who had spoken for higher education in Africa. But then I wanted to maybe be focused not on the whole Africa as they did, but on the East, the East African community where we are based and where is focused our mandate. So we've seen the opportunity of the EU African Union Summit as a great opportunity for us as it focuses on what really is in line with our strategic plan, which was just approved December last year. The issue of quality assurance framework, the issue of staff and student exchange programs, the issue of centers of excellence, whereby we are coordinating this project of centers of excellence of World Bank, the issue of TVET, whereby we are coordinating also another big project of the World Bank, part of our strategic plan. And we are having discussions in East Africa on what we call competence-based education as a way to also move universities to be focused on skills and competencies. So in brief, IUCA, we see this summit declaration as a great opportunity, and we are ready and committed to a renewed partnership for the promotion of regional and continental integration and harmonization of education. We are also trying to pursue strategic priorities in partnership with organizations that share a common vision for harmonized and quality higher education. And we are also committed to engage with our old and the new partners to benefit from the opportunities offered by EU and African Union Summit. So my question, what's next? I submit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Gaspard. It's actually a great opportunity to meet you. I have had a good working relationship with IUCA, and IUCA is a well-known institution to me. Thank you for that intervention. Let me give a chance to Mr. Christopher Mayaki, a very short, quick question, Professor. Please, okay, let me try to unmute him. Yes. Carry on.
Thank you very much, Professor Tafera, all the distinguished champions of a better African higher education. My name is Christopher Miyaki. I'm the Deputy Executive Secretary of the National Universities Commission of Nigeria. I bring the warm felicitations of Professor Abubakar Adamu Rashid, the Executive Secretary, and those of the 208 universities that currently make up the Nigerian university space, to congratulate the AAU and all the organizers, and to re-echo the deep sense of gratitude that we continue to feel for your recognition of the NUC and the Nigerian university space, and to say that we align ourselves, totally, with the raison d'etre, the expected outcome of this meeting, because it is happening at a time that is not just strategic, but it's very timely, very significant, because at a time when African, higher education needs reinvention and rebooting. And I hope that as a way of giving the outcome the loudest expression, there will be a mechanism, for disseminating the outcome statement emanating from this meeting, so that we have clearly identified and assigned succeeding steps. Otherwise, it will just be another, another meeting in futility. But it is with such pride and a deep sense of fulfillment that we bring our warm felicitations, and we thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Mayiki. It was very difficult to stop you because you are representing many, many institutions in Nigeria. Thank you for those kind words and support. Here I see Mr. Sadiku, who you are, and please a brief comment. Mr. Sadiku, let me try to unmute you. Right, Mr. Sadiku.
Thank you very much. I want to first of all join National Universities Commission Nigeria to commend the AAU for this wonderful EU Africa Summit. I want to start from the aspect of harmonization and internationalization of African programs, university programs. It has been an age-long agenda that we should harmonize even at Association of West African Universities and at AAU to internationalize our programs. I want to plead with AAU that we need to begin to put timelines for us to be smart, compliant in our international agenda, so that from time to time we want to know how far we have gone with harmonization, how far we have gone with internationalization, because it has dawned on us that we are facing a new reality that we need to harmonize, we need to internalize in a global village in view of the pandemic that we just recovered from. So we need to put timelines to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Sadiku, for that concise comment. Now, what I'm going to do, in the interest of time, I will, okay, now I have to allow Madame Olarinde, who has been and a woman, so I would I'll give you that chance, Prof. Ranine. Please identify yourself and take the floor.
Okay, I'm muting myself. Thank you very much. A very beautiful good afternoon from Nigeria, West Africa. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Babalola University, a member of Governing Council of AAU, West Africa. It is delightful and also encouraging that such a summit has been organized under the very brilliant leadership of our Executive Secretary, Professor Oyewale. I have just one contribution to make after recognizing and appreciating all speakers who have dwelled into the various issues with utmost seriously. The only one point I want to add, that it is important for us, each university, to have a solid directorate of academic planning, as the academic planning borders on education, curricula, research, innovation, delivery, virtually on all the issues that we have covered today. And also the academic planning must work closely with the Directorate of the Quality Assurance, and each university must strengthen each Directorate of Quality Assurance and academic planning. These two must work in utmost synergy for the benefit of all key issues identified. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm grateful for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Larinde, for those kind words and the comments you made in terms of academic planning and all the issues of curriculum. We're not going to open that debate here, but thank you for pointing out those key points. With that, what I'm going to do now, I am actually concluding, but before I do conclude, of course, I will give a chance for a 1 minute summary of the presenters. Who wants to take the first shot? Professor Oyewale, Prof. Ramon, if you have what they call in the business a parting message, and Dedra, I'll give you 1 minute each, and whom have I not called here? But okay, let me start with Ramon.
Yes.
1 minute, Ramon.
Yeah, less than 1 minute.
Okay,
thanks. It has been great sharing this with all of you. And I have written my less than 1 minute comment on the chat. So you have it there, less than 25 seconds. Thank you.
No, in fact, I will give you that 35 seconds to summarize what you wrote. You assume that everyone reads what you wrote.
That we must never forget the advice given by the representative of the European Commission that we must focus capacity building and capacity building at higher education level as a necessary condition for the implementation of all programs on development cooperation, at least those funded by the European Union. This is a strong message that we must consider very carefully.
Thank you, Ramon. Key messages from you: focus, commitment, capacity building for implementation. Thank you for that key message, Ramon. Let me give a chance to Dedra.
Thank you. Ramon has taken it from my mouth. What can I say? Please do remember innovation. I think that's, and Michael mentioned that also, I mentioned that. Agriculture, engineering, industry, collaboration with the private sector, looking out of the box. And there, I think the key messages I would pass, because there's intensive work about to take place, and I think universities should be in the middle of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The key message for me here is the universities at the center of these issues. As I said earlier, they tend to be oblivious to this, global multilateral dialogues and regimes. Those are key messages. And thank you so much, Dedra. the last, no, Michael has a hand. Michael, let me give you a chance, and I will give the last word for my Secretary General. Michael, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll keep it brief because I actually have to be in another meeting already, but I think it's important at least to add on that many speakers spoke about quality assurance, qualifications frameworks. We are all part of this HACA initiative. I think it's very important to keep it simple and to keep the outcome focus that I mentioned in my contribution at the bottom of everything we do, because quality assurance is a tool to assure a greater good, and it's important to have it. Qualifications framework is a useful tool. It's important to work on it, but we need to keep the eventual goal of better higher education collaboration, better higher education outcomes, better trained students, better research, solutions to global challenges always in focus, and treat the other things and topics as tools and aim, and not as an aim in itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. In fact, this gives me a chance to hand it over to Professor Oyewale, who already spoke about issues of quality, which you already underscored. Thank you, Michael. Now let me give the last word for Professor Oyewale.
Yeah, just to say that, just as I mentioned, we need to promote capacity building for research and innovation and for improved learning processes. It's very important that universities inculcate TVET initiatives into their university programs. I believe with this, our universities will become more relevant to our development. Lastly, permit me to appreciate Obreg Global, represented by Ramon Torrent, for joining us to organize this meeting. I also want to especially appreciate Deidre Lennon. You've been a great support to African higher education system for so many years. We always appreciate you and for your making the time to be here. Let me also appreciate the representative of DAD, the AAS, IUCA. Sorry, we couldn't get you finally, but nice that you can still make your contribution, and then the Arab Association of Universities. And lastly, to thank everybody present on this forum and to appreciate what you have done. Thank you very much. Over to you, Damtu.
Thank you very much, Professor Oyewale. In fact, I'm not going to make a conclusion or a summary, only to say that many of you asked about the presentations, and we will be able to actually send those presentations and the slides to you all, as long as we have your contacts. Just the last word for me is, please keep tuned. We will continue to actually organize such presentation and high-level dialogue in different forms, and you would hear from us. With those parting words, let me say thank you very much, all presenters, and those people who actually asked questions and made comments and feedback, and of course, the participants. With those, I would say goodbye, and thank you very much all.